Linkin Park is one of the best-selling rock bands ever.
Whether you were a fan of Linkin Park or not, or were once a fan but not anymore, you cannot deny the impact they have had in the rock scene and overall music in general. At the start of a new millennium came in a group of young people from California who had lightning in a bottle. But over the past 17 years, it feels like Linkin Park's fans have become more and more jaded as the band has become something very different than what put them on the map. First, a brief history. Their debut album, Hybrid Theory, would go on to sell 11 million copies in the United States alone. For the next few years after their debut, Linkin Park would become permanent staples of radio stations around the world. The band was unavoidable, but for all the right reasons. They had a unique sound and created music that stood out in a positive way in the sometimes treacherous subgenre of nu metal.
I say treacherous because for every band like Linkin Park, there are a dozen other bands like Limp Bizkit. I feel bad for having to compare Linkin Park to Limp Bizkit. I'm sorry, Linkin Park, you don't deserve that.
After a Grammy win, headlining tours, and overwhelming amount of momentum, the band would later release a live album and a reanimated album featuring remixes which both sold well, and then Linkin Park would follow it up with Meteora, another massive success.
Meteora, while similar to Hybrid Theory, was still fantastic. In my opinion, it really is my favorite Linkin Park album. They took what made Hybrid Theory so successful, refined it, and made it into something stronger that also lived up to everyone's expectations. It was exactly what Linkin Park, their label, and their fans could have possibly hoped for.
After years of this, however, Linkin Park started to grow up a bit. They were grown men after all. Perceptions, motivations, and music styles will change within every musician over time. This proved true in 2007 with the band's album Minutes to Midnight. And while it was a huge success in sales, radio play, and leading to more massive headlining tours around the world, there was definitely noticeable changes. Ballads, spoken word segments. The nu metal edge was definitely not as present, but in its place was singing, quiet moments, songs about politics, and the state of the world.
This is where the big change happened for the massive Linkin Park fan base. You were either loving this album like it was your firstborn child, or calling betrayal at the top of your lungs. There was very few people in between when you were a diehard Linkin Park fan, one or the other after this album came out. And unfortunately, this is the trend that would follow for every upcoming Linkin Park album release for the rest of the band's discography, including this month's One More Light. So, that brings the question and the topic of this video. Will we ever be happy again with Linkin Park?
Minutes to Midnight was the turning point. While it may have polarized some fans, it still was a commercial success in many ways and made more money than most of us will see in a lifetime. In my opinion, I don't think it's the wretched mistake other fans do. There are songs on there that have merit and are worth listening to, even if there are some missteps as well. But I say again, I don't think Minutes to Midnight is a mess of an album. That would be their next album, A Thousand Suns. I made a 28-minute video about A Thousand Suns, and it is something worth regretting. That was the album that made me want to review albums in the first place. While on paper, the concept was a great idea, the execution resulted in a head-scratching and at times face-palming listening experience. Whether you like A Thousand Suns or not, you know this album is a huge divide for most Linkin Park fans, and unfortunately, the jumping-off point for some. This is the type of thing that makes people not trust Linkin Park. It makes them not happy with Linkin Park in general.
It's not that Linkin Park shouldn't try new things, and it's not like the fans didn't want to support them, it's that they didn't like the end results. And at times, they didn't even know how to describe what they were hearing from Linkin Park with every new album that came out.
While this album still sold well, it definitely lost the trust of some Linkin Park fans. The argument is still strong, though, that just because an album sells well doesn't automatically make it a good album. Unfortunately, not everyone was happy with Linkin Park, and the amount of fans with that feeling has grown over the years. Living Things and The Hunting Party sold progressively less than their predecessors, which although is due to the times of people not purchasing music anymore, but it was completely obvious that hearing new music from Linkin Park was not the exciting proposition that it once was.
That brings us to May 2017. Linkin Park just released their newest album, One More Light.
I have heard more complaining about the direction and sound about One More Light than any other new album in years. The main complaint? It's not rock at all. This is radio pop in its purest form, destined to be romantic comedy soundtrack material at a later date.
I previously said that I was not going to do an album review for One More Light because it's not really something I can cover under rocked. It's not anywhere in the rock genre or any of its subgenres. However, if you're wondering what my review of One More Light is, I can tell you in this next video clip, and also give a great example of what this album can be used for.
It's 2 a.m. and I still can't sleep.
Why is everything so heavy? But I'm pretty sure the
I totally understand the betrayal shot when people heard the song Heavy for the first time. It's not what the millions of Linkin Park fans were hoping for in something new.
As fans of a band or artist, we should expect change and evolution. But we all have different expectations. So when a band like Linkin Park, who is known for making whatever music they want, there's always going to be a fan or two who is disappointed with the end results. And in the case of One More Light, more fans than one or two.
With all the different changes in style, the ups and downs, the wanting something new but not being satisfied, Linkin Park seems to be a band people want to love but just can't anymore.
It also doesn't help when Chester Bennington said the following.
If you're saying we're doing what we're doing for a commercial or monetary reason, trying to make success out of some formula, then stab yourself in the face!
And then when asked about moving on from hybrid theory, Chester said the following.
Why are we still talking about hybrid theory? It's years ago. It's a great record. We love it. Like, move the on!
Yeah, die-hard Linkin Park fans, you stab yourself in the face and move on. Wow. I can't even say that as a joke. Yikes.
I laugh, but I at least understand the frustration. I don't think Linkin Park is the band that is trying to pay for another mansion or get attention. I think they hear phrases, "Why can't you make stuff like Hybrid Theory again?" on an hourly basis. But after 15 years and continents of fans, it's hard to deny that Linkin Park aren't held in the same light they once were. It just feels like fans, even the longtime diehards, aren't happy with Linkin Park anymore.
So after all that discussion about Linkin Park's past, their albums, and their fan base's reactions, the question still remains, will we ever be happy with Linkin Park again? Well, my answer to that is not a definitive yes or no, but my real answer is, we can be happy with Linkin Park in the future. It is possible. Just because we're not happy with what Linkin Park did in 2017 doesn't mean that they'll never do anything good again.
Regardless of the band's decisions for what style to take in a specific album, whether that's nu metal, ballads, radio pop, or a concept, the band can still play and are still a functioning unit on the same page. Their ability to play and all their talent doesn't completely disappear just because they make an album that a group of people don't like. It is still possible that Linkin Park can make a new album in the future that will blow the doors off their hinges and rekindle most everyone's excitement for the band. Just because One More Light puts me to sleep and I didn't like 1,000 Suns doesn't mean the band is dead to me. That doesn't change the albums from Linkin Park I do like, and this theory goes for many other bands and albums as well. If you're looking for an example of that point, just look at Metallica and Hardwired to Self-Destruct. This past November, Metallica released their first new album in 8 years, and I said in my album review of it, it is the best album they have made since the Black Album. Not many people were expecting this and had written off Metallica years ago after some very questionable releases from the band, ranging from Saint Anger to that other album I don't want to talk about. It proves my point, though, that a band we love can continue and push forward and make an album that people enjoy, even if there are many albums that are currently being released that we are not crazy about.
One More Light is most likely not going to satisfy the people that grew up screaming along with One Step Closer. And this is coming from a fan who grew up with the Linkin Park poster in his bedroom. But just because we are not satisfied now and have had albums that really did nothing for us from Linkin Park in the past, that doesn't mean we have to write off Linkin Park altogether.
Linkin Park has given us a lot, and I'm willing to bet they can still surprise us in the future with something good. Even if for the past few albums they may not be the exciting band we once remember, that doesn't mean the excitement can't return, and that goes for many bands. So for those of you who enjoyed One More Light, great. For those of you who hate it, better luck next time. But for what it's worth, we could still be happy with Linkin Park, even if what we were given in 2017 wasn't the bright light we were hoping for.